Meet your Member of Parliament. This MP was voted into power by you and is in charge of representing your interests and concerns. Before this MP was an MP, they sold fireplaces with no political agenda. But this grape wanted more than fireside accounting could offer. And after some drum banging and soapbox standing, the votes came a-flooding in. The grape got into the Commons and became the Defence Secretary, in charge of strategic operations, defence planning and resource allocation. But the journey from cosy hearths to nuclear deterrence isn't one of fiction. This is real life, my friends, and happened not that many moons ago. This is the Wild West structure of the UK Parliament, and this is how it works. Way back when, before the UK was the UK, and before democracy was cool, civil wars reshaped the landscape. Towns and shires were raised and rebuilt. Monarchies came and went. Eventually, our four home nations agreed to join hands and become the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and so a government came to be. Nowadays, there are two main branches of the UK government, or in other words, Parliament. The House of Lords and the House of Commons. The monarch's there too, but they're mostly waving from the balcony like a royal emoji. So, this House of Lords. Picture about 800 non-elected folks who got to queue-jump Parliament because they're big shots in business, society, and maybe they just had really nice hats. It's like Westminster's VIP section, only it's a lifetime pass. Other countries like the USA or France have something similar, but they call it the Senate. The House of Lords get to chip in with lawmaking and will be called upon for their expertise in issues brought up by the MPs in the House of Commons. It's a little bit more complicated than this and probably deserves its own video, but that's it in a nutshell. This much more familiar house is home to the elected members of Parliament, or MPs, each representing one of the constituencies in the UK. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, there are 650 constituencies, meaning 650 seats. One seat equals one MP, voted in by us, the general public, in a general election. This is meant to happen every 5 years. The voting system is another complicated topic, but in short, the party with the most seats, not votes, seats, wins. The leader of the winning party will become Prime Minister. After all that excitement is over and we have a new PM in place, they will choose their cabinet. And we're not talking about a new bedside table for number 10 here. Every PM chooses roughly 22 MPs or Lords from their party to become their senior cabinet ministers, the inner circle. Those cabinet ministers swap backbenches for a front row seat in political stardom as heads of department for various sectors, each with their own portfolio to look after, like the Department for Business and Trade, the Department for Education, or the Department for Transport, and so on. Depending on their size, departments may have more than one MP selected by the PM. Being moved into a ministerial role by the PM means an MP moves off the backbenches, which is where the term comes from. If you don't have a ministerial role with the big banana, you're a backbencher. The cabinet meets up for weekly powwows to discuss how they'll run the country. And this is where that fireplace salesman comes back into our story. Because anyone can campaign to become their constituency's local MP, even you, dear viewer, all you need are the votes, your party to get the votes to win and be in with the big banana. Then, technically, you could be in charge of health and social care, called Secretary of State, giving you overall financial control and oversight of the NHS. In theory, cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister should stay in number 10 for the next 5 years. But as recent years have highlighted, departments can be reshuffled overnight, swapping the Secretary of State and Pensions for the Secretary for Culture, Media and Sport, like Pokemon cards. The tenure of Secretaries of State is very short compared with leaders of other organisations. The average CEO stays in post over 5 years, more than twice the average Secretary of State. But many ministers don't even last that long. In fact, Secretaries of State only have marginally more job security than managers in the top 4 English football leagues, who are notoriously hired and fired pretty swiftly. This high turnover of staff means ministers are not only inexperienced when they get the role, but they're also not in it long enough to see decisions through to results. This means they can't be held accountable for their plans, which could have a little something to do with the last few years. As recent times have demonstrated, not even the PM is able to survive these reshuffles, with our last 3 Prime Ministers resigning or being pushed out before their time was up. It's a pretty fickle business over there in Westminster. We're not saying this is the right or wrong way to do it, it's just how it's done at the moment. So when you head to the polls for the next general election, remember, you could be voting for the next Defence Secretary, the Health Secretary, or even your local Fireplace Salesman. Because who better to keep the fires of democracy burning bright?